And so Russell kind of guided me into the light and informed me that I was going to go home. And then again, in that multidimensional reality of heaven and earth and parallel lives and parallel existences, everything is going on at once. So around the same time, they introduced me to a being that was 30 feet tall.
So, hi, Soul Family, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Haji, and this is Amazing NDE Stories. Our guest today is Mark Patterson. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. So glad that you had me on the show. I really appreciate it. What an opportunity. Thank you.
Great, great.
So it is.
All right, so you ready, Mark?
I'm ready. Yeah, sure.
All right, so jump straight in and tell us about your amazing NDE.
Hi, my name is Mark Patterson, and I'm a latchkey kid from Iowa. When I was a child, I always knew things about people. I always saw auras and colors around people. I had numerous experiences with angels in the dream state. Um, ETs, UFOs were part of my daily life. Unfortunately, I was told that I was crazy. Don't talk about those things. How do you know that? You shouldn't talk about those things. Shut up. And of course, my father, who was a holy roller and Southern Baptist, he always told me that I was possessed. So you learn not to trust yourself. You learn you don't want to feel those things anymore because you're constantly teased and shamed and all those things. And so by the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I was doing alcohol and drugs just to numb it out because I didn't want to feel that stuff anymore because it was just so constant bombarded of, like in the dream state, going into other realities, seeing other realities, and thinking that you were crazy, but yet you knew that what you were experiencing was real and valid. I used to dream over and over again as a child that all the gifts, everything I wanted, Disneyland, Disney World, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, they were always found inside my bedroom closet. Everything that I ever wanted was inside my bedroom closet. Anytime I didn't feel like I was loved or wanted, I'd find myself inside the bedroom closet. Well, 40 some years later, you realize that that's a metaphor for everything that you want is already within the closet of your own heart. So the drugs and alcohol continued. And then one night I was at a high school party at the Canterbury Inn in Coralville, Iowa. I was 16 years old, and I decided I was going to try to impress my high school friends who were all older than me at the time. So I chugged a fifth of vodka, four beers, two glasses of wine, and about three or four wine coolers in about 90 minutes. My body went into cardiac arrest. I was completely unconscious on the bathroom floor of the hotel suite. My skin was green, black, and purple. I was completely lifeless. I was unconscious. I was dead. There's no other way to put it. And I immediately left my body. And I tried to call out to all my friends that were standing around me just a while ago, going chug, 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 chug. And I was greeted by my grandfather, Russell, who had passed when I was about 3 years old. And this is very common that if you have a grandparent who passes when the child is very young, they tend to become your guardian, like a guardian angel, someone that watches over you. And so Russell kind of guided me into the light and informed me that I was going to go home. And then again, in that multidimensional reality of heaven and earth and parallel lives and parallel existences, everything is going on at once. So around the same time, they introduced me to a being that was 30 feet tall, that had a lot of love for me, a love for who I was. And so there were seven angels. They were 14 feet tall each. and they showed me my life that I was living as like a hologram. Um, the best description I have is the city of the clouds, in the movie The Empire Strikes Back. And anytime I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, which is all that we ever do when we're teenagers, right? So they asked, how does that relate to love? And everything in our life is about our ability to express love, forgiving for giving your love away. And if you're always out getting material things, the car, the houses, this, that, and the other, you are forgetting who you really are. So then there went into this long dialogue. I was unconscious or dead for 22 minutes. So that 22 minutes seemed like it went on for hours on the other side. And they talked to me specifically about sound, healing through sound, sacred geometry, and the Melchizedek priesthood. The Bible makes a reference that Jesus is like Melchizedek, and thou forever shall be a priest of the Melchizedek brotherhood. And there's also a statue of Melchizedek over in Wales. It's been around for several hundred years. And so then that being, that 30-foot being in the Bible, it talks about the giants, and those days were the giants, formed an icosahedron that entered my body, and it brought me back to life. So in New Age terms, I'm a walk-in. Another soul came in and took over. And it's my understanding that walk-ins make agreements beforehand. This is all part of the plan. And Psalm 139:16 says, all the days of my life were ordained in your book. Every moment was laid out before me, before a single one had passed. And I do believe very strongly, based on my own near-death experience and studying religions now for 30 years, that we plan our lives out. Of course, that was widely believed by Presbyterians, John Calvin, Calvinism, predestined Presbyterians. The pre-existing soul is a part of all major religions. And so we agree to everything. We agree to our parents, our life circumstances, events, and all that stuff. And people always ask, so why do bad things happen to good people? Why is there such pain and suffering on the planet? And I've agree with Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the books Conversations with God, books 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I highly recommend book 1 and book 3. But he says that you wanted someone to forgive and you wanted to be forgiven. But ultimately it comes down because the soul said that this time I'm going to demonstrate the power of love. I'm going to show the power of love and what it can do. Now, of course, that's what Christianity gets into when they talk about the crucifixion and the resurrection, that was, that Jesus loved so much that he was willing to do that. But in modern times, in fact, I looked this up before I went on the air because I wanted to talk about this. The best example that I know that in modern times is the woman Immaculée, who was in Rwanda. And because of the civil war in Rwanda, she was forced to hide with like 7 other people in a bathroom. And despite the militants killing all of her family members and her having to endure such pain and suffering in that bathroom and not knowing if you were going to be alive the next minute, because they were constantly searching for them. And this was in 1994, I think. And so she survived, and not for 91 days with like 600 or 700 people in that bathroom. And then they finally caught the main individual who was responsible for killing all of her family members, and they gave her the opportunity to extract revenge on him. Like they gave her like a baseball bat or something, and she went into this whole surrender of love, forgiveness, and non-compassion of this individual and wholeheartedly forgave him. You want to talk about power? She got it. I mean, she nailed what it is about to be on this planet is, and that power of unconditional love and how it moved and transformed. And then she was able to go on and tell her story, of the power of love and the power of love to transform, to heal, to make amends, no matter how bad something happened to you. I mean, I had unspeakable things done to me when I was a child, and it's, again, I'm not blaming victims here. I just wholeheartedly believe that it was part of my soul growth, my soul opportunities to express forgiveness, compassion, and love, and to do those things. So that's what it's all about. And there were, and we have all these parallel lives, parallel timelines, and and some of these events are like dormant until situations that we decide, if we don't evolve, they awaken to awaken us, or if we do evolve, we bypass the karma. The laws of grace supersede the laws of karma, and we're not stuck with what we got. We can evolve. The word evolve is the only word in the English dictionary. The English language has the word love in it, and that's what we're here to do. So a lot of people will say, well, Mark, that story is kind of far-fetched. How can we be unconscious or dead for 22 minutes, and how this walk-in thing, people kind of have a strange idea of this walk-in, but it's very true. And in fact, about 10 years after my near-death experience, and I told two people, the girl that I was dating in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, and my best friend in Iowa, he's still in Iowa, about that whole night. Because what I remember when I got home that night or the next morning, my mom and everyone else looked about this tall. They looked really tiny and really small. And it took about 4 or 5 days for the walk-in to integrate and become Mark. And remember that I was a teenager at West High in Iowa City, Iowa. But then about 10 years after that, I got a phone call from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I really don't know how she got my number. She calls me at 1:30 in the morning, and she describes verbatim, word for word, what happened to me in my near-death experience, the messages I got from the angels, the being that was 30 feet tall, and talked about me being a walk-in. And then she described that dream that I had as a child that no one knew about, that all the presents, all the gifts were inside my bedroom closet. So yeah, I mean, it's really valid and real. And people always ask, well, how did that change you? Well, it just made me more psychic. It made me more intuitive. But I've told the story for many, many years now that I was up in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, in Door County with a childhood friend, and one morning I went to Peter's mother, and I said, you need to call your daughter and tell her not to come up. I just think it's a good idea for her to come up. And they looked at me like I was crazy, and I was adamant. Your daughter just cannot be up here right now. And so, again, at night at dinner, I was like, look, I need you to stop what you're doing, call your daughter, and tell her not to come up. Well, they got so upset with me that they put me on a Greyhound bus the next morning, and they sent me back to Iowa. And unfortunately, their daughter was killed in the car accident on the way going up. And so again, I was like, this is crap. I did what you asked me to do, and she's dead now. So I went to, like smoking marijuana and doing drugs every day because I didn't want to feel. And so around the ages of 18 or 19, I was introduced to Dick Sutphin, who wrote the book, You Were Born Again to Be Together, about past lives and reincarnation. And I saw Dick and Tara Sutphin 91, 92, 93, 94, trained how to do past life regressions. That's what I've done for 30 years now. And then she introduced me to the Out of the Ordinary show, which was based out of Los Angeles, California. KIEV. The Out of the Ordinary show had Jerry Bowman, who was an attorney from Boston, or Joe Albiani was the attorney from Boston, and Jerry Bowman was a trans channel. Now, most people have not heard of Jerry Bowman, but they have heard of a woman named Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine was a famous actress who believed in all the channelings and the ETs and all that stuff, and she still does. And her channel, her medium was Kevin Ryerson. Kevin Ryerson channeled John, as in John the Beloved or John the Apostle. And I would listen to these audio tapes with John, or the videotapes with John, when he was in Mount Shasta. And all of a sudden I found that John would come to me and speak to me just like you and I are talking now. And John would come to me and say things like, a master is not called a master because he himself says so. A master is called master because those who witness him say that he is master. For we never use the truth to be right. We never use the truth to be wrong, to make others wrong. We never use the truth to score points for ego. And we never use the truth to belittle others. And John, from about the ages of 18 to 25, just gave me so much information, a lot of information. And of course, when you're 18 and 25, there's too many blondes, there's too many brunettes, there's, there's Nature Boy Ric Flair and woo, and when you're 18 to 25, learning deep esoteric truth is, not on the your top 5 list of things to do. But 30 years later, you go, my God, maybe I should have paid a little bit more attention to what he was saying. But John has come back to me in the last year, and as we have resumed dialogue and communication. But for some reason, that time period of my life, I received a lot of information, and I have found that when we talk about energy fields, especially around the body, the energetic field, the aura, is morphinogenic. So I found that if I listen to Abraham Hicks a lot, Abraham Hicks will come to me in my dreams. When I was listening to John a lot, he would come to me in my dreams. And so we have this ability to tune into things that are in our energy field because it does have that morphinogenic quality. So after that, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. And this is an example of like synchrodestiny that Deepak Chopra calls synchrodestiny. I was watching these videotapes about Drunvalo Melchizedek called The Flower of Life, Sacred Geometry, about the pyramids, the Sphinx. And I was at 82 Queen at the time. It's a restaurant that's still there. And one night we had about an hour and a half, 2 hour wait. I had 6 tables. In the restaurant industry, it's called being in the weeds. And this guy comes into our restaurant, and every night that he's in, like 5 or 6 nights in a row, he ends up in my section, which is just insanity in itself. And the last night he's there, I have this angel come to me and talks to me and goes, it's a female voice, and she says, we need you to talk to him. And they're pointing to him about the videotapes, and we need you to talk to him about the videotapes you're watching. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm in the weeds. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? This is not going to go well. So I literally went to leave the table, and I got pushed back by an unseen force saying, no, this is important that you do this. And so I look at him trying to think, what the hell am I going to ask this guy? And I say, are you a mathematics professor? Looks at me and goes, Mark, what did you really want to ask me? Yeah. And I'm like, okay. I go, well, I'm watching these videotapes about geometry, the Sphinx, the pyramids. He goes, Drunvalo Melchizedek, you have those videotapes? I have to have those videotapes. Like, hey, they're not mine, but I'll call Rosemary and say, this guy wants these tapes. So it was really late at night by the time I got home. So the next day I called Rosemary and said, hey, this guy is adamant those tapes belong to him. can I give them to him? She goes, yeah, sure, I don't care. Why not? So a couple days later, I meet him, give him the videotapes. Don't hear anything from this guy. Like 3 months pass, right? I go to work one morning. Angel comes back to me and they go, Mark, yeah. So we need you to go to your manager and tell her that you need to go home. I'm just like, what? You know, no, I just got here. They want me to work. They're like, no, it's going to be okay. So I go up to Missy. Her name was Missy Miller, if I recall. And I go, do you mind if I go home? I guess I'm not feeling well. She goes, yeah, we're not going to be great today. Just go home. Angels come back to me and they go, we need you to go directly to your apartment. Please do not stop anywhere on the way. Okay, so this is fun, exciting, right? As I go to my place, I open the door. As I open the door, the phone is ringing. It's Roger, who I give the videotapes to. He's calling me from France, and he says, Mark, how would you like to work with Drunvalo in person? I'm like, yeah, I would love to, Is everything okay? You doing all right? Yeah. Thank you for the videotapes. Well, how much does it cost? What do I need to do? He says, everything's been paid for. Thank you for the videotapes. So this was November of '93 when Drunvalo was still teaching the actual things, and they were 12-hour days, and I spent 10 or 12 days with the guy. It was just phenomenal. Of course, when I eventually ended up in Sedona, Arizona, where I lived in Sedona for almost 15 years, Drunvalo lived there. We would run into each other all the time at Walmart, of all places, right? The spiritual experience at Walmart, right? And um, and there are just so many things like that. And I've said for years that life was never meant to be a struggle. We struggle with being who we really are. We resist who we really are. And that's why we have these challenges. But, the challenges are really energies and frequencies that we agreed to, before we came here. And I believe that because, we wanted someone to forgive. We wanted to demonstrate how powerful love is. We wanted to demonstrate that this time we are that powerful. And of course, we forget all of our agreements. We forget everything, and we have an ego that is, that is always usually based in fear, because it has this illusion that it's separated from God, source energy, chi, the force, whatever, prana, yogananda, whatever name you want to give it. It's really irrelevant, but that force is within anyone. Hell was defined by the Gnostic Christians as the distance that you placed yourself between you and God. And the more that you believed that you were separate from God, it was said that you lived in a life of hell. Now, we know that in 325 AD, there were about 14 to 20 books removed from the Christian Bible by Roman Emperor Justine that had to do with the Book of Truth, the Book of Mary. There was also a Book of Judas, other books that all related to putting the power of God within the individual rather than the church. And then in 553 AD, they declared karma and reincarnation heresy at the Second Council of Constantinople. And there's a couple passages that Jesus talks about. Jesus was Adam, and then he says we must prepare the way for Elijah. But Elijah was not recognized, and he was badly treated. Then the disciples realized he was talking about John the Baptist, implying that John the Baptist reincarnated as Elijah. So, which brings me to another point. So people have asked me this for many, many years. 98% of the people that have near-death experiences, like me, have a profound healing, love. It is just I cannot describe in words that experience. I cannot tell you, no matter what religion you have, whatever your beliefs are, you are loved no matter what you do. And that love is unfathomable. And I've been, now I've experienced it directly firsthand, but there have been 3 other times in my dream state where I've been brought back to that heavenly encounter, just as a reminder that we are loved. We are loved immensely, no matter what you do or don't do. There are really only consequences and actions and consequences. Our human mind gets into stuff, what's good, bad, right, or wrong. Yet at some point you got to go beyond duality consciousness and see the connectedness of all things, that we are in fact are all one. Even when you hurt the least of your brother and you were hurting me, we are all one. And that's kind of what we're gearing towards. So anyway, so just if you look at that definition, and if you look at the definition of sin, which is to miss the mark, the real definition of sin is without. And that's the Latin meaning of sin, is without. So the church did this really bizarre dichotomy that said you were born in sin, meaning that you were born without God, and only Jesus was born without sin, or Jesus was only born with God. And of course, that's the biggest lie ever told, because Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you. And that's where it's at. It's within you right here, right now, today. And when so when it's said that he, quote, abolished sin, when he was placed on the cross and abolished sin, he abolished sin, meaning that he removed the delusion that he was separate from God, and that he abolished sin and went to the depths of hell. Hell was a village outside of Jerusalem where they burned garbage, and if you could not afford a proper burial, you were given a shallow grave where animals could easily gnaw out the flesh. Or hell, that definition between the distance that you place between yourself, is that if he abolished that sense of hell, he abolished that sense of separation between himself and God to create the atonement, which is the at-one-ment, to create the resurrection. So, I mean, when people say that they went to hell in their near-death experience, what I believe is happening is that in other dimensional realities, your thoughts create, and they're instant. And so if you have you have decided that you're doomed to hell, as soon as you leave your body to your other dimensional realities, you could have that experience and you come back. The other experience that but hell, as it talked about in the Bible, doesn't exist. And then there's other people, and this seems to happen to those that take their own lives or try to take their own lives. And that's the only thing that is my understanding, that suicide is the only thing that's not ever predestined. That's told that you might have a or you might be predisposed towards having depression. But actually taking your life, I don't think is ever included. And they kind of got into that in the Robin Williams movie.
What dreams will come? What dreams may
Yes,
come?
what dreams will come. Yeah, they kind of alluded to that in that movie. So when the common thing that when people try to take their own lives and they cross over, is they experience a frozen tundra. But again, that's like less than 0.5% of all the near-death experiences, and going to hell seems to be about under 2%. 98% of people have near-death experience the light, expansion, forgiveness, love, just this unbelievable love. The truth is we've never done anything wrong. Just that we're addicted to drama and punishment and guilt and fear and shame, and that's of course, what the church gave us a whole buffet of that stuff. That you're guilty just for being here, which is insanity. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you're never alone. Your guides and angels are always with you. You are loved, and you've never done anything wrong. But you don't need to seek eternal life, because that's what you already are. Everyone goes to heaven not because of what they believe, but because that's where we're all from. You don't need to seek forgiveness because you've never been condemned. You don't need to seek salvation because you've never been lost. you're not going to fail at being human. If you and I leave for Jamaica at the same time, and you arrived 2 hours after I did, you didn't fail Jamaica. You just got there when you're supposed to. You know, we just put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. You know, my dad, and I can't believe this, my dad passed away. My dad was a holy roller. He had the Bible memorized. When I say he had the Bible memorized, that thing word memorized word for word. And he was a true Bible thumper. And he passed away 9 years ago. And about 2 months after he passed, he came to me in a dream. And we do receive visitations from loved ones and angels in our dreams. And he said, Mark, you seem to be in this race to be perfect. You might want to get out of a race that has no finish line. You know, that's pretty profound for, you know, even someone like him to say that. I mean, that's as profound as someone like, you know, Wayne Dyer, Greg Braden. But yeah, you know, you might want to get out of a race that has no finish line. It's very true. So yeah, I just, you know, you're here to love, you know, love and appreciate yourself is the most important thing, because if you're not happy with you, you really have nothing to offer anyone anyway. And so find out what makes you happy and do it. It's important that you feel good. Don't squash your dreams. You know, and the other thing you got to be mindful of is rejoice, move forward, and go and tell no one. Because a lot of times we allow other people to talk us out of our dreams, or we allow them to plant enough seeds of doubt that we get discouraged, and their projections become our doubts, their insecurities become ours. And it's people that are the most successful people are the ones that have that unwavering focus. They never give up on what they want, what they want to do. I mean, so all the shows from The Voice, American Idol, they all say to the contestants, take ownership of who you are, take ownership of your gifts, and share them. But I think most of us do this thing where we call out to God, dear God, why would you give me a gift that no one wants? And God responds, dear child, the problem's not the gift. The problem is that you're afraid if people find out that you have that gift, they're not going to want you. And so we reject ourselves so that others don't reject us first. As a productive, we play small.